Hello and happy Tuesday. Today, I'm gonna kind of go Greek mythology on your asses to kind of outline the time we seem to be in. I know I'm not the only one feeling this way, but a lot of you know the story of Icarus, who flew too close to the sun and fell into the ocean and died. But I don't think many people know of Icarus's father, Daedalus. He was the one who created Icarus's wings, and his father. He was his father. Daedalus created these wings made of feathers and beeswax for the purpose to escape from Crete, which is where he and his son Icarus were being held captive by King Minos, ruler of the seas. Daedalus told Icarus, he warned him. He said, "Let me warn you, Icarus, to take the middle way. In case the moisture weighs down your wings, if you fly too low, or if you fly too high, the sun scorches them. Travel between the extremes." And Daedalus was a very skilled inventor and artist, and nobody would have guessed that before he was imprisoned in Crete, he was actually exiled from Athens for murdering his nephew. He had pushed him over a cliff because he was just like, man, this motherfucker is too skilled. He's going to overshadow me. Boop. Pushed him off the fucking cliff. And Athena saved the kid, turned him into a bird. But, didn't stop Daedalus from being tried and then banished from Athens. I feel like he should have been thrown in prison, but, Greek mythology. But my purpose for bringing up this myth, or this story, is that we look at the beauty of creation and the path of the in-between, and as we teeter between the extremes in our minds, we strive for simplicity and we work hard for that which means a lot to us. All the while we try to make simple what we created in difficulty. When it comes to what it is that means something to you, stay the course. Remain true in what's important to you. And try to let go of that which is weighing you down. And if you do that, your feet will never touch the ground. Flying between the extremes. Not too high, not too low. Currently, I'm in this bliss. I was listening to music earlier as I was trying to organize my episode for today, and chipping away to make sense of this episode that I haven't recorded yet. And it brings to mind this current moment of freedom. And doing what makes you happy and staying the course and releasing the weights from your ankles. Letting go of the how you're going to do it and just doing it. I consistently preach how important it is to stay the course in your happiness. And it can be the easiest path to walk and the hardest path to stay the course. We have things that block the path. We have forks in that road. We pick up passengers. We have to drop them off. We pick up little packages and parcels and carry and deliver along the way, and that is life. It's a series of tiny journeys, little side quests that bring us to the end of our lives where we look back on the path that we walked. And the only proof of that path that we walked in previous years is the footprints. The footprints are the evidence of where we were. And these footprints are in our mind. You know, they say the rolling stone gathers no moss, but it does leave a weighted trail in its wake to show it was there to begin with. Having these expectations for my life, as you do, you know, trying to make sense of every happening with the expectation that it'll somehow make some semblance of coherence to the grand scheme of where we'd like to go. When it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. It's about the pain and the happiness and the suffering and the joy and the adventure of imperfection. The adventure of imperfection, as we are all critically flawed. But we only see those flaws in ourselves. Because when we look externally at everything that is opposite to us, we see perfection. We see perfection in how the seasons come and go. We see perfection in the precision of the rising of the sun, rising of the moon. We see perfection in the way an artist who has been creating for years creates something with such ease, right? And then we turn out that eye of perfection to ourselves, and all we see is imperfection, not knowing that all the while the artist sees imperfection in the way it creates. The small imperfections in how the seasons change, and its extremes and its ups and downs. The fact that we can't really measure exactly how much the earth may tilt to one side, or how fast or slow it's going, and how the world operates in a series of imperfections. Imperfections that are so imperfect that they appear to be flawless in nature. And that's what I mean when I say that you're wonderfully imperfect. It's wonderful how perfectly imperfect our systems run, and how we see things. One of my favorite philosophers, Alan Watts, actually really helped me in an emotional time in my life when he spoke he spoke so wonderfully of the human condition. You know, he once said to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you'll sink and drown. Instead, you relax and you float. I want to end today's episode with a clip from one of my favorite lectures from Alan Watts on purposelessness, a practice within Taoism. I hope you'll enjoy this clip as much as I do, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.
Zhuangzi has the funniest tales about this. He often says, people who are trying to help things along are a nuisance. The do-gooders. He has a conversation between Lao Tzu and Confucius, in which Confucius is prating about charity and duty to one's neighbor. And Lao Tzu says to him, this is nonsense. He is just binding things on to people, putting burdens on them with charity and duty to one's neighbor. He says to Confucius, look now at the universe. The trees grow upwards without exception. The stars always follow their courses, and the migrating birds at the various seasons always cluster with complete regularity. But they don't say anything. They don't have any religion. And your idea of eliminating yourself is a positive manifestation of self. You have brought much confusion, sir, to the kingdom, because you are like one who beats a drum in search of a fugitive. Or we would say, like the police driving to a raid with their sirens on. And of course, when the fugitive hears the drums, he conceals himself. And so when you sound all sorts of drums and promise to be virtuous and make resolutions to be virtuous, you're in for trouble. Because the devil hears you coming. You see now, this is something that's very important. There is a Zen story which describes a woodcutter working in the forest, chopping down trees. And he suddenly noticed in a bush over there an animal that was watching him. And this animal is a Satori animal. And he thought, I'm going to get that animal for lunch. But the animal could read his thoughts. And the animal said to him, you think you're going to catch me, don't you? And the woodsman looked round and he made for it, and the animal vanished. And then appeared at the opposite end of the clearing, laughing, saying, you can't catch me. He thought, the next time I see that animal, I'm going to move to the opposite end of the clearing from which it appears, catch it that way. And the animal said, you're thinking, aren't you, to go to the opposite side of the clearing from which you see me? And for a while, the man tried, by going in various directions with his axe, to catch this animal, all to no avail. So he got disgusted and went back to chopping the tree. And the animal laughed at him again and said, so you've given up. And just that moment, the axe head flew off the axe and killed the animal. You see? He had to get it without intention to do so. That's what's called purposelessness in Taoism, which is a form of Wu Wei. And a Taoist text says, when purpose has been used to achieve purposelessness, the point has been grasped. So, it's the same problem we have. In India, you know, there's a superstition that if you think of a monkey while you're taking medicine, the medicine won't work. So you're in the predicament of trying not to think of the monkey while taking medicine. And that happens to us whenever we try to be natural. Everybody can see it's forced, it's faked. And so you think then, how can I be genuinely natural? How can I really flow with the course of nature? How can I let my mind think whatever it wants to think? Because the moment I start doing that, I realize I'm doing it with an ulterior motive. I'm trying to meditate. I'm trying to grow spiritually. And that ruins the whole thing. Well, when you've tried for a long time to get the right attitude, and you find that all the attitudes you get are phony ones, then you come to the realization there's nothing you can do about it. It really doesn't make any difference. And again, the principle that I've emphasized all along, you give up. And in so doing, gain the strength and energy that you were looking for. You see, it's like trying to live in the present. Gurdjieff used to set his students the exercise he called self-remembering. That is, constantly, all day long, Be completely aware of what you're doing. Have your mind always on the immediate moment. Oh, and it's tough to do that. You get distracted all the time. Till one fine day you realize, to your astonishment, there is no way at all of having your mind anywhere else but in the present moment. Because even when you think about the past or the future, you're doing it now, aren't you? And that results in a very curious transformation of consciousness. You feel that the present moment is flowing along and carrying you with it all the time. Just like the flow of the Tao. The flow of the Tao is what we would call the flow of the present. See? And you're with it. There's no way of being anywhere else. The Zhongyong, the book called The Unwobbling Pivot, says the Tao is that from which one cannot deviate. That from which one can deviate is not the Tao. Or to put it into the form of a Zen story, the master Joshu said to Nansen, "What is the Tao?" Nansen replied, "Your everyday mind is the Tao." Joshu asked, "How do you get into accord with it?" Nansen replied, "When you try to accord, you deviate." So that's the principle. And this, although we're again the paradox, you see, this sounds like a completely laissez-faire, spineless attitude to life. But it is precisely Taoism which underlies, in common with Buddhism, in conjunction with Buddhism, it underlies the greatest achievements of Chinese art and culture. It underlies judo. It underlies the Zen arts of Japan, calligraphy, architecture, gardens. It is the form of Chinese philosophy which in subsequent years became most interested in science and in the study of nature. The Confucians never had any interest in science because they were bookish people. They were all absorbed in texts. They were essentially scholastics and never opened the book of nature. But the Taoists were always observing natural phenomena, how they worked. They were interested above all in manual skills and using the Tao to perfect manual skills. And therefore, these lazy people achieved the most interesting results because they were like water, which is lazy and always seeks the line of least resistance. But that is almost the same thing as intelligence.